done so many things wrong. I backed away when I should have stood strong. I quit things were taking too long, and Lord, it's taking forever to write this song. I was born on the mighty Mississippi. My daddy was a mean drunk hippie. When mama had me, that damn doctor hit me, and now you know why I'm so goddamn lippy. So listen up and take a step back. Real rap's a journey, not a one-way track. Find your own voice, don't just imitate, cause the real ones rise and fakes ones fade. Bragging about the streets they roam, and sitting on the cold aluminum throne while I'm spitting and vibing, they just moan, claiming they're kings but sitting alone. Got bars like a prison, but they can't break free. Spitting recycled lines, no originality, and here I am bringing up clarity while they babble on, lost in their parody. No need to set a trap with a limp in their wall. People saying they you ever can't even talk. Babbling lines, they think they're so fly, but I'm here to tell them to say goodbye. Babbling nonsense, trying to chase that fame, but I'm here to call it out. It's a damn shame, claiming they're the next Big E in the game, but their rhymes are weak, just a flicker, no flame. You sound familiar, yeah, real vanilla, so similar, like some out of place gorilla in a small villa deep in Manila. Kin to Queen Camilla and her flotilla and all kinds of Furbies and chinchilla who drank too much tequila. And what's really killer is that the real thriller is the real spiller of the real thriller is the real filler of the real deal. All these channel nerds on this panel verse using battle words to tackle turds and slaying shit in bit non-bits, putting out hits on men with tits and chicks with dicks and LGBT misfits and don't know shit yet, professing truth like an effing sleuth in a private booth with a lying tooth, drunk or removed like a damn fool. And just in case you haven't heard, I'm a true ogre that writes his own word, so don't cross the line, it isn't blurred. And from first-hand experience I've learned when I hold the words back in my mind. It's just me trying to be kind, but no, man, I'm not so blind. Speaking is the right kind. Speaking vivid visions right from the start, with each word playing a certain part. A verbal picture that shows its own art, painted with passion, inspired by the heart. I'm telling you, break the chains with the truth in a world full of babble and giving proof. So drop the act, let the real ones thrive. In this rap game, only the genuine survive. When things have become so problematic, I try to find solutions like an addict looking for a bump to keep up the habit, and the effect seems so damn automatic. This comes of personality or whatever you want to call it. I don't participate chasing the bag by trying to ball it. See, I'm a redneck with no money in my pants wallet, so go ahead and keep hating on me like Jussie Smollett.
Everyone questioning my style, you must be kidding. The words that I am putting forth are hitting you in the right in the face, yet you are tripping. You're drunk on something and you ain't been sipping. Just step into the metaverse where the vibes can be cursed, digital dreams, but sometimes it feels like a hearse. People lost in avatars, chasing likes in the cloud. But what's worse is the real world's fading now. We all have the freedom of speech, but people always trying to bleep me. Is it because they can't keep me? Or is it because they can't beat me? Bringing the simple truths that you can't destroy. All the patent things I've seen since I was a boy. The things that made me cry and brought me joy. The good and bad in my life I learned to employ. Taking from them the experience and leaving emotions behind. And so I learned to be true and no longer accept to be blind. Acting and performing in ways that others have defined, only to find out once again that I have them aligned. We're living in a world that's so filled with doubt. If you're caught in the game, they try to seem to break out. I see you looking for the truth, but it's hard to scout. Thought you were awake, but finding you're lost in the clouds. They feed us the script, gotta learn to live without. Learn to question every lie and to flip the route. See the agents lurking in the dark corners all about. See I'm breaking free, hear my discernment speaking out. Perception's a trick punch like a shadow in a bout. Chasing after dreams, others trying to drown them out. But I rise from the ashes and break free from that doubt. In this matrix of madness, you hear me scream out, breaking the chains and getting rid of all the doubt. That's what you have to do to find your way out. Drink the clean waters and let your vision sprout. In a world of of deception. Together we'll rise and shine. The matrix way twist what it's all about. Reality's not a screen, that's delusion. You can do it out, trapped in that illusion, and mostly seeing others pout, feeling like a pawn in a game where they set the route. Bet you didn't think I could wipe this rap. Bet you didn't know. Bet I'm right in fact. So scream all you want and write in caps. All you really doing is fighting stats. So remember I was born on the mighty Mississippi. My daddy was a mean drunk hippie. My mama had me. That damn doctor hit me. And now you know why I'm so goddamn lippy.
Days ago, and look who we have. Say hi to Dempsey. We've come to realize that it's a female with the dull coloring, and so therefore it is no longer Dempsey Sir Poops a Lot. It is Dempsey Madam Poops a Lot. So just once again, reminder, if you're a steward of life, you will have lifelong friends. God bless. Love y'all. Have a great day. And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. Always appreciated. And the stream link should be pinned down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. Today we're going to be talking about Stalin and Putin. Is history repeating itself? And the tactics that were used by Stalin back in the World Wars era, World War I and World War II both, and the reasons behind that. So we've got a video lined up to discuss, but I've got an introductory video again as to why we're reviewing this kind of stuff, so that we can teach that reality that if we keep doing the same things and allowing the same things to be done in the scope of this worldview, then history will repeat itself and we will not progress forward. We'll just keep doing the same stupid, idiotic stuff by becoming the same bitch-ass slaves like Hitler's willing executioners, paying that tribute to the false patriarch. So let's take a look at the importance of the education of the children that are going to be growing up into our nation's leaders. And it's a disturbing fact that I keep speaking out about in this public education system. So let's take a look. Oops, wrong one. And here we have conservative child discriminated against by triggered teacher. And like I said, this is the false dichotomy presented in these public education system, where these teachers do in fact bring their political views and ideologies and try to impose them on the children. So you have one child being exposed to 6, 7, 8 teachers throughout the day, plus other staff that are all imposing their ideologies onto your children. What could be more confusing? What would be more pertinent to observe that it's imperative that the parents take over that education, training them up in their ways instead of these insane distractions and separatist views and ideologies that most definitely separate a child from the real patriarch, or the intangible patriarch. Let's call it that.
Crystal Morrow, parent in Alachua County and a proud conservative. This school district is toxic for conservative families, and you can see exactly why they don't want to show up at school board meetings and speak out. The toxic environment goes down to the school level, and they are encouraged to discriminate against the conservative children. My son, 6 years old, was prohibited from sitting next to his friend on the school bus because a parent objected to my perspectives on book challenges. My older son's history teacher allowed students to label him a Nazi file simply for his interest in history and participation in ROTC. She later nominated my son as the most likely to become a dictator and had his classmates.
You know, that popularity contest that they have in these educational centers, who's going to be the most successful after they graduate, the popularity of the king and the queen of prom, things like this, to help that impersonation, that character development of these children in a personification of glorification rather than the reality of the hurts and bumps and things that come along with life and how you actually deal with them through reason and logic rather than just in your emotions.
Vote on it and try to force him to the front of the class to receive the certificate, which he rightly refused, all because of his concern to receive the certificate, to the front of the class to receive my son as the most likely to become a dictator and had his class. She later nominated my son as the most likely to become a dictator and had his classmates vote on it and try to force him to the front of the class to receive the certificate, which he rightly refused. She later nominated my son as the most likely to become a dictator and had his classmates vote on it and try to force him to the front of the class to receive the certificate, which he rightly refused, all because of his conservative values and our perspectives.
That young man stood up by remaining in his seat. Said, nuh-uh, I'm not going to do it. Fuck you. You ain't my daddy. I think his mommy and daddy were bringing him up in the right ways. And he stood his ground. He didn't waver. So no matter what kind of spirituality you seek in this world, whether it be Christian, one of the Abrahamic religions or otherwise, the concept is if you want your children to be adult and responsible like yourself, and maybe even embed that in him enough that, or her enough that in the future they become better men and women, instead of being stagnant as Hitler's willing executioners and bitch-ass slaves, fucking fools, idiots. That's the importance of the education. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
I want to begin by sharing a few examples from Alachua County school board meetings that should alarm every parent, every educator,
Absolutely.
and citizen in Florida.
Absolutely.
Deputy, can I get you to get up there and talk? Yeah, sir, I'm going to ask you to be removed from the auditorium. This is the public space, right?
So the people that are allowing these teachers to do this stuff, when you speak out against them, those authoritarian figures turn around and assert their false authority and have a man removed from the very public forum that he's placing a challenge in. He's challenging them. He's contesting the reality of what's happening. But as we listen to this, you'll see that they go by a process, not by dignity and virtue and reality of being honest, righteous people and saying, hey, yeah, that is kind of wrong, whether we've known about it or not. Now that we do know it, this man is making a proper challenge. So pay attention to what happens here.
Said that he does not have to be removed. I'm going to say, ask you all to please be quiet. Board members, officers. Board members.
I recommend that we take a recess. Number one, terminate Dr. Simon. She's more focused on politics than our children.
Just
Number
a
two.
minute, just a minute. I asked you earlier to refrain. Please have a seat.
Refrain from what?
Please have a seat.
I'm not done, ma'am.
Yes,
Number two, we could save countless lives by terminate Dr. Simon. She's more focused on recess. Number one, terminate Dr. Simon. She's more focused on politics than our children.
Just
Number
a
two.
minute, just a minute. I asked you earlier to refrain. Please have a seat.
Refrain from what?
Please have a seat.
I'm not done, ma'am.
Yes,
Number two, we could save countless lives. Number one, terminate Dr. Simon. She's more focused on politics than our children.
Just
Number
a
two.
minute, just a minute. I asked you earlier to refrain.
I asked you earlier to refrain. Just because you asked doesn't mean it's procedure. This is an open public forum, and this is a violation of the First Amendment, trying to tell people they have to refrain when she clearly says, I asked you to refrain. That's authoritarian to now try to enforce what she can't enforce by making it seem like she can, by violating this man's rights in a public forum. And when he challenges it, refrain from what? There still is no process except I asked you to refrain. How more authoritarian can you get? Do you see Hitler's willing executioner? Do you see a bitch-ass slave to a false patriarch? I'm sorry if you don't like my language, but I think it's time we start facing up to the truth of this reality.
Please have a seat.
Refrain from what?
Please have a seat.
I'm not done, ma'am.
Yes,
Number
you
two,
are.
we could save countless lives by pushing for
Deputy,
with less.
escort him out. Chief Hamilton, help escort him to.
For what? What did he violate? He didn't even violate a policy. He was in open forum, public forum, where he is allowed that First Amendment. Not just in the freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but the freedom of association. He is not part of that assembly other than a civilian. And in that capacity, they most certainly violated his First Amendment.
The door. Thank you so much, sir.
It's page 68. I want him to love me. I take his penis in my mouth. He's like a
Pay attention here, folks. This is where that challenge issue comes in. And listen to what she says.
little boy. But I know he's not. He's 13. His thing is as big as mine. I go around with him with my
Mr. Abbott,
tongue.
excuse me just a minute. I'll give you your time back. I want to be sure. Because we're saying no, but what do you say as the attorney?
Don't take my.
I do not know that he has challenged this book yet.
Okay,
I have not seen that book on. If you have challenged it and it's on our website, then he is by statute entitled to read it, or else we have to remove it.
Entitled by statute to read it if it's been challenged on that record. Again, that's a violation of the First Amendment by saying, no, first you have to challenge it. No, you don't. Where the fuck does that shit come from? Challenge that. Challenge my language, you fucking bastards. And again, excuse my language.
because we're saying no, but what do you say as the attorney?
Don't take my.
I do not know that he has challenged this book yet.
Okay,
I have not seen that book on.
Susan Siegel, staff attorney. Okay, so for her to interfere in someone's First Amendment right as an attorney, there has to be a decision made before a board of directors to employ her in a capacity of representation for each specific issue. So if she has issue with this man and his challenge, she has to have a decision through a meeting of the board of directors that is logged by the secretary and known as the minutes of the meeting, in wherein the issue is discussed. Otherwise, she has no legal or lawful availability of interfering and intermeddling officiously.
If you have challenged it and it's on our website, then he is by statute entitled to read it, or else we have to remove it.
It's so good.
He
He doesn't wake up.
Check the website, and he is not listed as having filed this challenge.
okay, so you
Um,
can't continue to, she's saying it's not listed. Just as we all been up here talking, we're gonna follow the law.
So you're going to violate his freedom of speech by saying, no, you can't speak about it in a public forum unless you challenge it, and that challenge is filed in the public record. You're going to violate this man's not only right to freedom of expression, but in that freedom of expression, remember, if you're going to profess that you have rights, you have a certain responsibility in those rights to uphold. And that is the knowledge of how those these rights work. And they come with that responsibility. In this, his responsibility in freedom of expression is a duty in law. The first duty in law is legal notice. He's giving him legal notice right now. So the attorney trying to say he can't challenge it unless he challenges it with her and it's filed in that venue.
Afternoon, here's a copy. You want to see it?
Okay,
If it was dropped off this afternoon, I
it
have
wouldn't be on, if it would,
been updated.
right, it hadn't been updated.
I suggest it would be inappropriate to drop something off at the last minute and then come in.
And the updating would be her records in whether that's filed or not. And the updating matters not. The notice was given. It's lodged. He's lodging it here, showing that it will concur with that record when it does update. So either way, you're stuck. This man did an excellent job in presenting, and that attorney is just a plain idiot, in my opinion, because this is not legal advice of any kind, folks. Just my interpretations.
And read something like this.
In these videos, the Alachua County School Board violates First Amendment rights and parents' rights and encourages a hostile environment at school board meetings.
And at the meeting, like I said, the authoritarian figures on that panel did the exact same thing. Why do you think the teachers get away with it? Why do you keep sending your children to these public education institutions? I assure you, just plain as mom and dad, you can do a much better job bringing these children up in the ways of the Lord than the school ever would. And you have to really think about that with that Pledge of Allegiance.
These moments unfold, I feel outrage, disappointment, and a renewed determination to protect the rights of parents and the well-being of our students.
Anastasios Kamoutsas. That's I believe that's like a Brazilian name. Interesting. Just a note. So anyway, oops.
News from 16 News Now.
From a small town.
Our next one.
Joseph Stalin rose to lead one of the world's most powerful nations.
I'm not the greatest at this yet, folks, so please bear with me. But the darkest side of Joseph Stalin says, warning, hard to stomach, viewer discretion advised. This video contains graphic content and descriptions of the darkest side of Joseph Stalin. Our intent is to educate and raise awareness about these horrific crimes, condemning terrorism and highlighting the devastating consequences of such acts. While we strive to present this information respectfully, the content may be deeply disturbing. Please approach with sensitivity for the victims and their families. Understanding these events is crucial in the fight to prevent such atrocities from occurring again. And at this time, I'll remind you of my own caveat. In agreement with this, viewer discretion advised. Fair use. All clips are used for fair use commentary, criticism, and educational purposes. See Hoseinzada versus Klein, 276 F Supplement 3D 34, SDNY 2017 equals 3 LLC versus Dukin Media Inc. 139F. Scrolling at the bottom of your screens, this is for education and to raise awareness. So let's get into it. And again, I remind everybody, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. There is a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. You'll find that in the details section along with other links in my email. And the link for the stream is there for anybody that wants to join the panel.
From a small town in Georgia, Joseph Stalin rose to lead one of the world's most powerful nations. His rule was marked by ruthless control, starvation, and mass imprisonment. He crushed opposition without mercy. Yet after decades of terror, his power finally slipped away, ending with his death in 1953, a lonely end to a reign that changed the world forever. Stalin was born as Iosif Vissarionis Dzhugashvili on December 18, 1878, in the town of Gori in Georgia, which at the time was part of the Russian Empire. His early life was filled with poverty, violence, and instability. His father, a shoemaker, was an alcoholic who often beat his wife and son. Stalin's mother was deep.
And at this time, I just want to remind everybody, my viewers and stuff, I'm trying to change my platform over to open topic reviews and research. So anybody that's got an idea of a topic you want me to do as it relates to anything. Yesterday we did one on the moon landing, whether it was it really happened or not. And again, my views in this are not so much as to oppose or agree, but to simply do the research and get the information out there, generally from both sides of the track. And that's why I'm reviewing Stalin and contemplating what Putin's doing and how it seems kind of similar in some ways, so that people can see how history repeats itself. And maybe we can get together someday and do something about it. But in the meantime, I don't have any opposing views or in agreement with anything. I'm just trying to learn more about it myself and get the information out there to others that are just as concerned, you know, on a macro level as well as our micro level. What do we have to do with it? Are we just Hitler's willing executioners going along to get along?
Religious and sent him to a church school with hopes that he would become a priest. But Stalin rejected religion early on and was eventually expelled from the Tiflis Theological Seminary in 1899, likely for spreading Marxist ideas. That expulsion marked the beginning of his involvement in revolutionary politics. In the early 1900s, Stalin joined the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, aligning himself with the Bolshevik faction led by Vladimir Lenin. He took part in
kind of similar to what we have with the auto workers union with the mob ties there. You know, it's just a big gang, you know. And when they had prohibition, the government consequently learned a little bit more about business tactics from the gang. It seems reasonable to me. Know thy enemy, use their weapons against them. Concept of silent weapons, quiet wars.
Organizing strikes, robberies, and underground propaganda, acts that got him arrested multiple times and exiled to Siberia. But these hardships only deepened his commitment to the revolution. By 1912, he had adopted the name Stalin, meaning man of steel, and began writing for Pravda, the Bolshevik newspaper. He wasn't particularly charismatic, and his speech...
So he was a journalist putting out his views through his own journalism first. So rather than sitting down and contemplating and writing one publishing known as something like a memoir or an autobiography, and he just started journaling, putting out his ideologies and trying to be an influencer in a popularity contest so that he could have control. Control of what? If you need a popularity contest to show that you have some kind of control, then you've already lost. Because the biggest sign of control is self-control in being able to do things without everybody else's pat on the back. Knowing that you're doing what's true and right, and understanding that you have your own path. If everybody else is going the wrong direction, why would you follow them?
Just lacked the passion of more popular revolutionaries like Trotsky, but Stalin made up for it with cunning and political.
Of course, many don't see that popularity as the wrong path. They don't understand that concept to listen to the message, not the messenger.
Ruthlessness. When the Bolsheviks seized power in 1917 after the October Revolution, Stalin gained a position in the new government. In 1922, Lenin appointed him General Secretary of the Communist Party, a role that, at the time, seemed administrative. But Stalin...
A role at the time that seemed administrative. Do you understand what these administrative courts are doing? They're doing the same thing that we're going to hear what Stalin did. Okay? Pay attention.
Used it to his advantage, placing loyal allies in key positions across the party and
placing loyal friends in key positions throughout the administration.
Bring detailed information on rivals, often through spying and blackmail. Lenin grew suspicious of Stalin towards the end of his life. In what became known as Lenin's Testament, he warned other party members that Stalin would...
Like I said, they generally write one publishing known as something like a memoir or something, a manifesto. This one here is Lenin's Testament.
Was too rude, too power hungry, and should be removed from his position. But after Lenin suffered several strokes and eventually died in January 1924, Stalin suppressed this warning and made sure it never gained traction among party leaders. Instead of stepping aside, Stalin began a campaign to consolidate power. He first aligned with Grigory Zinoviev and Lev Kamenev to sideline Leon Trotsky, who many assumed would succeed Lenin. Trotsky was forced out of his military role and eventually exiled from the country altogether in 1929.
Gang style, right? You get all your buddies and you start ousting people through your capacity of authority, well, presumed authority anyway, because of course, you understand this started out as an administrative position, and he used that administrative position to just take control.
Stalin then turned on Zinoviev and Kamenev, accusing them of factionalism and having them expelled from the party.
All through accusations, having people expelled and moved and chastised, and quite the popularity, huh?
Stalin eliminated almost all his political rivals, often using fabricated charges, public humiliation, and secret executions to do so.
Again, I remind you of the administrative courts. Fabricated charges, public humiliation, secret executions, people meeting in the back room saying, okay, well, we're going to do this. You know, prosecutor meeting with the defense attorney. Yeah, we'll do it this way. And no one talks to the defendant. None of his business. He'll do what we tell him to, because we're all friends behind the scenes.
By 1928, Stalin had absolute control over the Communist Party, and by extension, the Soviet Union. That same year, he launched the first 5-year plan, a massive economic project meant to transform the country from a poor...
Notice there's no mention the man was elected.
...poor farming-based society into a powerful industrial nation. The plan focused on rapid industrial growth. 5-year plan, a massive economic project meant to transform the country from a poor farming-based society into a powerful industrial nation.
What do you think happened in the 70s when all the farms foreclosed and industrial farming took over? You guys understand what's going on? You guys even see it? See, it's playing out in slow motion. Whereas this war stuff happened in a matter of a few years. And I specifically asked about the farm foreclosures in the 1970s, 50 years ago. How slow do you think the transformation's occurring here on American soil? Like I said, here on American soil, I constantly see Hitler's willing executioners. I see Stalin-like behavior.
The plan focused on rapid industrial growth, especially in steel, coal, and heavy machinery. But to make it work, Stalin needed full control over food and labor. That's when he turned to agriculture, and millions of lives were about to be ruined. He forced farmers across the Soviet Union to give up their private land, livestock, and tools. These were small farmers, known as kulaks, many of whom had worked the same land for generations. Stalin labeled them as greedy enemies of the state simply because they owned slightly more than others. He claimed they were standing in the way of progress and used that as an excuse to crush them. Their land was taken, and they were forced into massive collective farms run by the government. This
Much more extreme than just foreclosing on farms, obviously. So just tone it down a little bit and just make them go poor and see how long they last. You know, let them live on the government food cheese lines, huh? They're the ones that used to produce it, and now they got to live in the lines. You remember those too, don't you? Take them off the farm, and now they're standing in line to get the food that they produced.
process was called collectivization, and it wasn't optional. Anyone who refused was labeled a traitor. As soon as collectivization started, the countryside erupted in chaos. Farmers killed their animals rather than hand them over. Grain production dropped sharply because people no longer had any reason to work hard on land they didn't own. But Stalin didn't see it that way. Instead of fixing...
Exactly. So rather than letting the farms be devastated, again, it was a slower process where they prepared, and they had this foreclosure scheme, and industrial farming just kind of took over, no lapse in supply or anything. Yeah, I suppose the fuel crisis and all that other rhetoric was in that World Forum a distraction from what's going on right here under your noses.
The policies, he blamed the farmers themselves. He accused them of hoarding grain and sabotaging the economy. In response, he ordered mass arrests, executions, and deportations. In 1929 alone, more than...
Yeah, that's what they're describing here, and they're going to actually specifically mention collectivism.
100,000 so-called kulaks were sent to forced labor camps. Thousands more were killed on the spot or died during transportation.
And when we look at the genocide of the Jews in World War II with Nazi Germany, I want people to understand the extent of the genocide going on here in 1 year. You know, listen for that. Listen to these numbers and the time spans, and understand that history and how devastating this was. And this is going to mention Ukraine. You know, we're talking about Ukrainian territory.
Families were torn apart. Children were taken from their parents. Entire villages were emptied overnight.
And that's the main tie that coincidentally has so many keys, both back in World War I and II, and modern day Putin and Ukraine.
Stalin even created a campaign called dekulakization, which wasn't just about economics. It was about complete control. There were no trials, no second chances. Once labeled a kulak, you were finished. Meanwhile, the Soviet state continued to demand massive grain exports to fund industrial growth, even as food shortages spread across the country. Stalin ignored warnings from local officials and experts. When areas couldn't meet grain quotas, Red Army troops were sent in to seize what...
So much like the video we first saw where the authoritarian figures were dismissing and not heeding the words of the people in the forum, telling them of the atrocities and stuff, and they just barge forward. Do you see how it repeats even on your local levels when you see this kind of stuff? And this is what I see. Despotism at its greatest, right in your own front yard.
What little food remained. Homes were raided. Storage barns were emptied. People were left with nothing to eat. One of the most horrifying things Stalin did happened in Ukraine. Between 1932 and 1933, millions of Ukrainians starved to death. This famine, now known as the Holodomor.
It's much like domesticating pigs, folks. You entice pigs to an area by laying out some food. And you observe that, and you see that they come. They are attracted to that food. It's free food for crying out loud. So you do this as a process to get them to keep coming back to the same spot. They get comfortable. And then one day you put up a section of fence. And they might be a little timid, but they know it's always been safe before. What's that fence going to do to them? You do this for a little while. And then next thing you know, the pigs are walking up there and they see another section of fence. Well, that fence never hurt before. So they go ahead and they keep eating. And you keep putting up fence pieces around until you have one day where you got them all in there on the one side of the pen now, all eating, and you've got a way to shut the other side of the pen. Now you got all kinds of pigs. Over time, you leave those pigs in that pen and just keep feeding them, and they're okay with it. Stockholm syndrome, kind of. But in a natural way, they just come to believe that they're okay being penned in, despite their natural nature. This is the slow enslavement of the American people becoming indoctrinated to be just doing my job, sir. Otherwise, AKA Hitler's willing executioners, AKA bitch-ass slaves, AKA fucking fools. You know, it's time to wake up and become aware of what's going on around you and see it for what it is. Greetings, John. How you doing tonight, brother? Thanks for joining.
Hello, my friend Keith. How are you?
I am well. I am well. I got to ask, John, I know we tend to agree on a lot of things, but I got to ask you specifically, the way I see things, and I start calling it out as Hitler's willing executioners. Are you seeing the same kind of things that we saw demonstrated in that earlier video with the Board of Education and the derogatory reading material being presented and how to challenge that? I'm just doing my job, and in that I have the authority to tell you to shut up. Are you seeing the same kind of stuff?
Absolute, Keith. This is fascist communist takeover of America. Of course I see it. You're right. 100%. The people have no say here, but they could have it in the future.
Right, and that's what I'm urging, and that's why the education of our future is so important. And that is why the education of you right now today is so important, because ain't nobody else going to teach them but you. They're your children.
Yeah,
you have to do it, moms and dads.
We're just letting it happen, Keith. It's a communist fascist takeover. It's Hitler all the way.
Yeah. And that, folks, is why I wear this thing, you know, just so you understand. It's just a reminder. I'm not Hitler's willing executioner, but I could be. So I've got to stay away from that because I don't want you to see me as Hitler's willing executioner. So I'm going to be up front with you and let you know I might be Hitler. It's kind of a reminder to you the same thing then, isn't it? That's all I'm doing. And if it triggers you, all the better. All the better to wake you up.
Was one of the darkest and most brutal chapters in Soviet history. It was the result of Stalin's aggressive push for collectivization and his ruthless desire to break any form of resistance, especially from Ukraine. Ukraine had long been a fertile region with rich farmland, and its people were proud of their cultural identity. Result of Stalin's aggressive push for collectivization and his ruthless desire to break any form of resistance, especially from Ukraine. Ukraine had long been a fertile region with rich farmland, and its people were proud of their cultural identity. Aggressive push for collectivization and his ruthless desire to break any form of resistance, especially from Ukraine. Ukraine had long been a fertile region with rich farmland, and its people were proud of their cultural identity.
You know, the mid-plains was a fertile farmlands, and the people were proud of their culture. You know, those small farm families I was talking about. Now, we still have some communities of Amish and Mennonites, and that's always great to see.
Yep, and how about all the hog farmers in Iowa? They're real people.
Yeah, agrarian style lives. And that's, you know, for this Christian society, I can certainly see why the Mennonites and Amish live like that. I can see how we have people that live the spiritual nature, but don't become agrarian themselves, but they acknowledge that agrarian system as they are sojourners from here to there and there to here and never settling down in one place, but actually messaging what they see in their journey. And that's why they start out in journalism. Amazing how this concept of industrialization has brought us to where we are today, and it brought us forward so fast. But everything else seems to have been slowed down. Remember the New Deal in the 1930s between the First War and the Second War? Remember the industrialization? Come on.
Ukrainian farmers were deeply opposed to Stalin's collectivization orders. They resisted giving up their land, their grain, and their independence. In Stalin's eyes,
and that was in reference to the other cultural heritage throughout the Americas here, not just farming. You know, all the other production things, like John mentioned, hog farmers, cattle farmers, sheeps, you know, everything, hunters, fishers, trappers. And those are all cultural things that are all bygone, because now you have to have some kind of commercial license in this industrial world in order to partake in that. At least that's what they would have you believe.
And Keith, the loggers up here in New England, all the wood.
Yeah.
We made ships. We built homes. For Christ's sakes.
Yeah, it's amazing how much this industrialization has taken over culture, and people haven't seen that.
this resistance wasn't just disobedience, it was rebellion, and he was determined to crush it. In late 1932, Stalin imposed impossibly high grain quotas on Ukrainian villages. When villages failed to meet the quotas, Soviet enforcers moved in and took every bit of food they could find. Armed groups, called food requisition brigades, went from house to house, searching walls and floors for hidden supplies. If anyone was caught hiding food, they were either executed on the spot or deported to labor camps. To make things worse, Stalin introduced a law in August 1932 that became known as the Law of 5 Years of Grain. Under this law, anyone, child or adult, caught taking even a small amount of grain from a field could be sentenced to 10 years in prison, even executed. It didn't matter how hungry you were. Stealing state property, even out of desperation, was treated like a serious crime.
That, folks, is straight up genocide. Every man, woman, and child has a right of life. And when you take the absolute sustenance of life from those people, or even execute them, I think that is a very subjective thing that in the objective eye should never happen. And it's only the ill will of people in delusions of grandeur and fame and control, even if it's just control without fame and notoriety. Many of them are secret behind closed doors, you know, all these perverts and pedophiles and stuff, things that, you know, they're not so proud of. So they don't want that out in that popularity contest. It's amazing the psychology of and psychopathy of various individuals that we see constantly in these authoritarian positions. No matter whether it's a local teacher or a national dictator.
By winter, the situation was catastrophic. Entire regions were starving. The borders of Ukraine were sealed off so that people couldn't leave in search of food. Trains were stopped. Roads were blocked. Stalin even made sure that foreign aid organizations.
And while I'm at it, I was just thinking, I wanted to mention something earlier when we had that video about that teacher and that little boy. You know, it's amazing how they refuse to take responsibility for their own insanity. And again, like I'm trying to warn people and point out to people, if you're sending your children to these public education institutions, they're being filled with all kinds of dichotomies and ideologies from all different kinds of people, and it's doing nothing but confusing them so much that they're not going to listen to you either.
Yeah.
That's the imperative part of being part of the one that helps them, or ones, mom and dad, to help them understand their own reality by using reason and logic to create their own ideologies, their own perspectives, according to their own character and personification.
Yeah. Keith, if you look up the word school, It means scheme. And that's a buried definition. It will not be the first one you read. Trust me, it's there.
It's what?
It means scheme. Scheme. S-C-H-E-M-E. Trust me, it's there. It will not be the first definition.
Oh,
you read it.
scheme. Scheme.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, that's what do you think
That's
Social
right.
Security is?
Well, I'm saying the literal definition. I think that's in Merriam, actually. If you
Yeah.
look it up. So they're telling us, but no one reads dictionaries anymore. Oh, well.
Oh yeah, they don't. Yeah, dictionaries, thesauruses, concise English, college composition, anything to do with literal construction of how you speak, so that people can actually comprehend what you're saying. People will continue on in their babble, and this is something you can quote me on, folks. A man's intellect is limited and biased by his own vocabulary. So let's get into it again.
Organizations couldn't send help. The death toll grew rapidly. Estimates say that at least 3.9 million Ukrainians died during the Holodomor, but some researchers believe the real number could be over 7 million.
And that was about a year long. That was within about a year.
Entire villages disappeared. Families collapsed one by one. Survivors later spoke of eating grass, tree bark, and boiled leather. In the most extreme cases, especially in isolated villages, reports of cannibalism began to surface. Parents were forced to make choices no one should ever face. And all this time, Stalin knew. He received regular reports from the countryside. He knew people were dying by the millions, but he refused to reduce grain quotas. In fact, he increased the pressure, accusing starving Ukrainians of being lazy, disloyal, or saboteurs. While Soviet cities received food shipments and propaganda claimed the plan was a success, rural Ukraine was being erased.
You ever have that experience being one of these administrative courts for fines, fees, and penalties and stuff? Hey, you haven't been paying. How come? Well, I haven't been able to make enough out of it. Well, in that case, we're just going to up the fines, fees, and penalties, and you'll have to pay them in a shorter period or you're going to go to jail. You see, it's all about the money. It's all about that industrialization for control through a monetary system, because you're the ones that believe the emperor wears clothes. You're the one that believes the emperor has authority. You're the one that wants to keep paying tribute to that false patriarch by paying taxes when taxes are voluntary. Wake up.
In 1934, something happened that changed the Soviet Union forever. Sergei Kirov, a popular Communist Party leader in Leningrad and seen by many as a possible rival to Stalin, was suddenly assassinated. The details around his death were suspicious from the start. Kirov had recently disagreed with some of Stalin's decisions.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
And not long after that, he was gunned down in the hallway of a government building, with barely any security around him. Many historians believe Stalin either arranged the murder himself or allowed it to happen so he could use it as a reason to go after anyone he considered a threat. Right after Kirov's death, Stalin passed new laws that allowed the secret police, known as the NKVD, to arrest people without evidence and execute.
Is that ICE? The new secret police? I mean, we see videos of them out there arresting and taking people away without any badges or anything, masks over their face, not identifying, just scooping them up and running away. Everything secret. And it looked like a police activity. Secret police?
Them without trial.
Wake up, people.
This marked the beginning of what came to be known as the Great Purge, or sometimes the Great Terror. It started quietly at first, but by 1936, it exploded into one of the most intense and violent political crackdowns in modern history. Between 1936 and 1938, Stalin's regime arrested more than 1.5 million people. People were taken from their homes in the middle of the night. Some were arrested for things as small as making a joke about Stalin or being late to a meeting. Once arrested, they were dragged into interrogation rooms where they were beaten, starved, and tortured until they confessed to crimes they didn't commit. The trials that followed were just for
people today willingly confess to crimes they didn't commit because they don't know who they are. Particularly people that are sitting there saying, I'm just doing my job. So maybe question what your job is.
Joe. They were called show trials because everything was scripted. Judges, lawyers, and defendants all played roles. The accused were forced to confess to being traitors, spies, or enemies of the state. Many
all played roles. That's all it is. The role-playing game. Big old LARP. Part of a popularity contest. And the better you act, the more people are going to like you.
We're just zombies that file paperwork, Keith, and zombies that accept the paperwork on the other side of the counter. That's it.
Yeah, through ignorance, we don't know what's really being said in those documents and applications and registrations and all this. And when you get down to it and understand your capacity first and foremost as in a state of being, that clarifies your status and what you actually do, not what the words say.
Yeah, and the word status means state, which means stationary, which means you're not moving, even mentally.
Yeah, you stand your square. That's what standing is. Bring a child up in the ways of the Lord, and he will not waver. He commanded, and it was done. He spake, and it stood fast.
Were told their families would be punished if they didn't confess. Some were promised mercy, but once they confessed, they were shot anyway. In 1937 alone, nearly 400,000 people were executed.
400,000 in 1 year were executed. For what? Genocide, in my opinion again.
Children of those arrested were labeled enemy offspring and placed in orphanages or sent to labor camps themselves. Stalin even turned on the Red Army, one of the strongest in the world. He ordered
the Red Army, Russians. Remember the Holodomor Compact.
The arrest and execution of top military leaders, including Marshal Mikhail Tukhachevsky, one of the Soviet Union's most respected commanders. In just a few months, around half of all army officers were either executed or imprisoned. This left the Soviet military weak and disorganized, just a few years before World War II would begin.
So you emaciate your civilian population so you don't have anybody that can come into the military, or you make slaves of the ones that you do allow to live, so they're weak and can't fight in a military, and then you turn around and kill half your military. Was the guy bright? Why do you think he suffered his downfall?
Yeah. Right.
That empirical control overtook the reason and logic so much that he couldn't do the math.
By the end of 1938, the NKVD had executed about 700,000 people. Millions more were in camps, many of them never heard from again. Those who weren't executed were sent to the Gulag system. The Gulag system was one of the darkest parts of Stalin's reign. It was an enormous network of forced labor camps spread across the Soviet Union, especially in the coldest and most remote areas like Siberia, the Arctic, and the Far East. Gulag is short for Glavno Upravlenie Lageri, which means Main Camp Administration, and it was run
Main Camp Administration. Do you guys need any more? Where, John, let me ask you, I'm sure you can get it. Where does enforcement happen?
Enforcement?
Main Camp Administration.
Oh, okay, yep.
Isn't that where the enforcement happens, when you go to court and they enforce whatever babbled accusation's been made?
Right. It's not the threat now. It's not the legal construct. It's the actual thing. Right.
Yep. Now you're before a judge, an administrative judge, and if you don't see that guy over there in the uniform, he's gonna beat your ass and put you back behind them bars where you belong. You're an enemy of the state if you don't listen to me.
Yeah. Right.
By Stalin's secret police.
With their elevated desk and their mean look and their silver hair. Remember, judges almost always have to have silver or gray hair. but not always.
Amazing how they get so wise in their old age, huh?
Stalin used these camps as a tool to get rid of anyone he thought might oppose him. By 1939, there were already over 1.3 million people locked inside. But throughout Stalin's years in power, it's estimated that more than 18 million men, women, and even children passed through the gulags.
Bad Barney, no bullet says on that. Government in the U.S. has 2 million plus people arrested in prison. Yeah, I'd say he's keeping up with Stalin. Good call, Bad Barney.
Yeah, and Keith, that's a lot more than China, but look how many people live there.
Absolutely. Of course, I can't say much for that because, again, we have to think about the Uyghurs over there, too, and that genocide. You know, so, you know, it's still going to happen. Just different reasons, different ways.
Right.
Still through administrative enforcement.
Right, but our side is much more administrative threats than their side. I think it is. Not really sure, but
Well, I don't know. The threats seem to be carried out with this number right here. You know,
yeah.
2 million plus. I mean, of course, I can't say that's absolute because you would have to look at the stats, and there are many stats that are going to say that are different, and this and that. But the general scale of it is it shouldn't be that at all.
Right. Plus, we have to count the halfway houses and all the recovery programs and all the other shit
Yep.
they put in.
Yeah, you know, all the things that they use to try to replace the asylums by making it seem like they're either criminals or addicts. They're not crazy. Just get them out of the asylums and let society see that they're just criminals or addicts.
These weren't just criminals.
They're people. It's insane to me the number of people that I see saying I'm just doing my job, and they have no consideration for the actual spiritual essence of life. I asked a lady back when I was trying to get some treatment for lung cancer at this one clinic because it was during the mask thing, and I refused to wear a mask. I'm already having a hard time breathing, right, with lung cancer, and now you're going to restrict my breath again. And the lady at the counter said, "Oh no, we're fine with that." So I went and I waited for my appointment in the public forum and everything without a mask. But when the lady came out from back to see me, she said I had to put a mask on. I asked her if she was a Christian. She said yes. And I said, so as a Christian, you're telling me under Genesis 2:7, where God formed man of the dust of the ground, and he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, reminding her that I had lung cancer and that it would be a restriction on my breath of life. And that man became a living soul. And I said, so you're telling me that as a Christian, following that concept, you're willing to violate my living soul by telling me I have to wear a mask, restricting the very breath of life that I'm trying to fight to keep? She chuckles and said, yes. My companion will testify that just on the stand just as much as I will. She was there with me. We were appalled. And then she tried to turn around and call the police on us to have us removed. Just doing her job, huh? Pathetic. That's worse than any administrative court I've ever been in. Christian lady professing she's a doctor took a Hippocratic oath to Apollo and the Greek gods.
Many were teachers.
Okay, here you go. Okay. Claw,
In men,
jaw,
women, and even
law.
Claw, jaw, law.
See the similarity?
Oh, yeah. They grab you. They got you in their claw. First thing they do.
That's it. They use words, though. They use words to tell you everything.
Yep.
You got to decode those words.
Understand, along with that, there's a set of actions that we see that are similar. So again, it's the personality types, the psychopathy of people like Stalin and Putin and even Trump and all the other presidents that allow this to happen while the good man that needs to be able to observe it and see it for what it is and stand up and say something about it, and mention how he so slowly sees America becoming Hitler's willing executioners right before his own eyes.
Even children passed through the gulags. These weren't just criminals. Many were teachers, doctors, engineers, students, and peasants. Inside the camps, life was unbelievably harsh. Prisoners were forced to do backbreaking labor like mining, logging, building railroads, or digging canals, all with the most basic tools. They worked 12 to 16 hours a day in extreme conditions. Food rations were tiny, barely enough to survive on. If you didn't.
And on a note here, real quick, before we get any further, I want to remind people in World War II or after World War II in Germany, the consequences there was that there were about 10 million Germans that were exiled from Germany. And that leaves a opening for other people to move in. And that immigration of people that moved in is part of a system that allows for a change in education of the general population. And that's done through the teaching from those very immigrants of a different way of doing things. And that itself is a change in the culture, right? That's on the macro scale, okay? That brought down the Berlin Wall. What do you think happens if you start teaching your own children how to observe these same things and see them for what they are on the micro level? You have to be able to see them on this macro level. Again, I profess it's not just Putin that's imitating what happened with Stalin and Hitler and Lenin and all these other atrocities of these psychopathic, control-minded people. Is it because they didn't have enough control of themselves on the micro level that they had to present in this popularity contest to be a control on the macro level?
Meet your work quota for the day, your food would be cut even more. Medical care was almost non-existent. Public punishments were used to scare others into staying.
And I guess that's the part I don't understand, is the drive for that popularity. You know, that listen to the message rather than the messenger. Everybody's trying to be the messenger. I think it's plain.
Being quiet. The weather made survival even harder. In camps like Kolyma or Vorkuta, temperatures could drop below minus 50 degrees Celsius in winter. Frostbite was normal. In these freezing zones, simply falling asleep outside could mean death. Kolyma camp was known as the land of gold and death because prisoners were forced to dig for gold while barely surviving. In some years, the death rate at Kolyma reached 30%, almost 1 in 3 prisoners dying each year. In the first 5 years, were forced to dig for gold while barely surviving. In some years, the death rate at Kolyma reached 30%, almost 1 in 3 prisoners dying each year. In the first 5 years alone, over 130,000 people are believed to have died in that region, while barely surviving. In some years, the death rate at Kolyma reached 30%, almost 1 in 3 prisoners dying each year. In the first 5 years alone, over 130,000 people are believed to have died in that region. Women and children were also imprisoned. Women often faced sexual abuse from guards or other prisoners. Pregnant women gave birth in the camps, and many babies died shortly after. Some women were arrested just because their husbands had been labeled enemies of the people. Whole families were torn apart. Then in August 1939, just before World War II began, Stalin signed a secret deal with Adolf Hitler called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Publicly, it was a non-aggression treaty between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. But the real damage came from the secret protocol attached to it. That hidden section outlined how Hitler and Stalin would divide Eastern Europe between themselves. Stalin wanted breathing room to build up Soviet power, and Hitler wanted to focus on invading Western Europe without worrying about his eastern flank. Just over a week after the pact was signed, Hitler invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, triggering World War II. 17 days later, on September 17th, Stalin invaded from the east, claiming he was protecting Ukrainians and Belarusians. In reality, it was a calculated move to claim his share of Poland, as agreed with Hitler. Stalin's troops quickly took control of eastern Poland and, not long after, occupied the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. These were independent countries, but Stalin annexed them by force in 1940, following rigged elections and the installation of puppet governments.
Annex them by force. Annex them by force.
Yeah, like they did to the U.S. Southwest.
Yeah. I mean, we got to think about this stuff, people. Is history repeating itself? If so, is it happening through Putin alone? Are there other world leaders that it's happening through? Has it been a pattern through world leaders like Stalin and Putin? I mean, what about the other leaders in between? It's still allowed for what we see today. I mean, it didn't change so dramatically enough that we're not seeing the repetition of what's already happened through that same area.
One of the darkest outcomes of this invasion was the Katyn massacre. In the spring of 1940, the NKVD executed more than 22,000 Polish military officers, police, doctors, professors, and other members of the Polish elite. The goal was to wipe out any potential resistance.
And the educated people, like the doctors and stuff, so that a re-education can be implemented. The education of an ideology, which is a restriction of man's nature to go beyond his own ideology, push the bounds and limits, because that's what brings real progression of knowledge and wisdom.
Victims were buried in mass graves in places like Katyn Forest. For decades, the Soviet government blamed the Nazis.
Control the education system, and I'll build you a society of the perfect dumb slaves.
For the killings. It wasn't until 1990 that Moscow finally admitted the truth. After occupying eastern Poland and the Baltic states, Stalin began a massive campaign of forced deportations. From 1939 to 1941, more than 1.5 million people were rounded.
So here we even hit on modern issues today, both in Russia and America, United States, when it comes to deportations and stuff, as well as other countries. The deportation immigration issue is pertinent to understand. The people coming in illegally and unlawfully and stuff, again, we're seeing a large population of adult males when it comes to the American immigration. There are some women and children, some families, but not on the scale of what we see here in World War I, World War II, and all this that, like I said, the agricultural families were destroyed. Men, women, and children. Just being done a different way.
Up in the middle of the night and loaded onto trains headed east. These were not just political activists or military officers. Whole families were targeted. Many were arrested for the vague crime of being socially dangerous, even if they had
the social score. You're socially dangerous. You're socially dangerous because you have enough ability to speak out. Again, it's my right to be able to speak out and express myself, but I'm only empowered by that, through that, to do that by your right to know. If I don't support your right to know by explaining my observances and my opinions and open it up for discussion, then it will always get shoved away, dusted off, and hidden in corners and become secrets. And you will then continue to believe on that being in that pen and being fed the slop by your master is just fine.
No political activity at all. The conditions on the trains were horrific. People were packed into cattle cars with...
It seems like the more literate we are and the more material advances we have, the more weapons they have against us.
Yeah, it's like yesterday's video, we talked about technology and advancing technology. You would think if you were going to destroy any technology as it relates to that moon landing discussion we had yesterday, they say they destroyed the technology that got us to the moon. And some guy said, well, you would think that if they were going to destroy any certain technology, it would have been something like the atomic bomb. But instead, no, they destroy the thing that gave us progression. And rather than just destroy something that was nothing but destruction. So
They're just jealous.
well,
I really think it is. That's the
well,
big one.
it's the power control, authoritarian, and having to be part of that popularity contest to show that you are in control, when in fact that's the first signal to me that says you don't have control of yourself at all. That's why you're so dependent on everybody else, thinking you're such a great man, or bowing to you because you're such a powerful man and you have so much control over their lives. Where does that kind of power come from?
Yeah. They could be just jealous, Keith, of our body, our brain, our potential, our creativity, our freedom, our earth that we live on. I think that's just my theory right now, is that they're just jealous.
Yeah. They can't live by their nature and they're forced to live in their own little pathetic lies. I can see that.
No food, no water, and no sanitation. Some trains took weeks to reach their destinations. Hundreds died along the way from suffocation, from starvation, or exposure. Babies and elderly people often didn't survive the journey. When the survivors arrived in places like Siberia, Kazakhstan, or the Arctic North, they found nothing but barren land and forced labor waiting for them. Stalin's dreams started to shatter on June 22, 1941, when Hitler betrayed him and launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive surprise invasion of the Soviet Union. Stalin had ignored multiple warnings,
Imagine that.
reports from British intelligence and his own spies, believing Hitler would honor the pact. When the attack,
one man that wants to control and dominate the world and another man that wants to control and dominate the world get together, have a meeting, decide they're going to do it together.
came, the Soviet military was unprepared, and the Germans advanced quickly. Stalin went silent for days, not even addressing the nation until July 3rd. As the Red Army retreated, Stalin gave brutal orders. One of the most devastating was the scorched earth policy. Destroy everything of value: food, bridges, railways, factories, so the Nazis couldn't use it. Entire villages were burned down, and millions of Soviet civilians were left with nothing. This policy, while slowing the Stalin gave brutal orders. One of the most devastating was the scorched earth policy. Destroy everything of value: food, bridges, railways, factories, so the Nazis couldn't use it. Entire villages were burned down, and millions of Soviet civilians were left with nothing. This policy, while slowing the Germans, caused immense suffering for ordinary people. They had no homes, no food, and no way to survive the advancing winter. Stalin also imposed savage military discipline.
So another form of genocide. Just let them starve. Take everything from them right before winter. Just let them starve. Destroy everything so they have no shelter, no plumbing, no electric, no heat, no none of what? Yeah, that's genocide. Taking away all basic elements of a necessity of life in a modern society.
His infamous order, number 227, issued in July 1942, made it illegal for soldiers to retreat without permission. The order created blocking detachments, Soviet troops stationed behind the front lines, whose job was to shoot any soldier who tried to flee. That year alone, more than 150,000 Soviet soldiers were executed by their own commanders. Stalin viewed these deaths as necessary sacrifices for victory.
Viewed they were necessary sacrifices for victory, when in fact it was a main component to his downfall. Main component to his downfall. Let me ask everybody. Do you suppose it's imperative for the success of the United States to be able to supply military men without depleting its birth rate and entrance of future military men? Just a question.
By 1944, as Soviet forces started pushing back the Nazis, Stalin turned on his own people again. He accused entire ethnic groups
No way.
of helping the Germans, even without proof. On February 23rd, 24th that same year, Stalin ordered the mass deportation of the Chechens and Ingush from their homes in the North Caucasus. NKVD troops stormed villages, gave families minutes to pack, and forced them into unheated cattle cars. Roughly 500,000 people were deported in just 2 days. Later in 1944, the same
Just 2 days. 500,000 people in just 2 days. You see it happening today. It's just much softer and much slower. Still happens.
happened to the Crimean Tatars. About 200,000 were deported from Crimea in a matter of days. Like the Chechens, they were accused of collaborating with the Nazis, though many had fought in the Red Army. Soviet records later showed that nearly half of the Crimean Tatars, about 46%, died within the first year from starvation, illness, and exposure.
46%. That's almost half the entire population that they took in.
Their homes were given to Russian settlers, and their culture nearly vanished. Even after the war ended in 1945, Stalin didn't lose his grip. Instead,
nearly vanished, but yet to this day hasn't fully recovered. And that goes to that birth rate and being able to preserve your, quote, ethnicity.
Repression intensified. Millions of Soviet soldiers who had been held as prisoners of war by the Germans were not welcomed home. They were treated as traitors. Many were arrested and sent straight to the gulags. Stalin believed that anyone who had been outside Soviet borders might have been infected with Western ideas. In 1952, Stalin unleashed a new wave of paranoia, the anti-Jewish purge, known as the Doctors' Plot. He accused a group of Jewish doctors of conspiring to poison top Soviet officials. Though no evidence existed, many were arrested, tortured, and imprisoned. The campaign created a wave of fear across the country and led.
When you have reigns of final judgment and execution because you have control of implementation, then you can order anything. When you have a system that implements the absolute authority that everybody else believes they are subject to you and your orders, that's a lot of control. How sound-minded could someone be to think that they could control that many people? What is the sound mind of a man that can control himself and knows the limit of the other people that he can have some kind of influence on as a mechanism in control? See, there are distinct differences. A popularity contest, the insane delusions of me, and portraying some kind of fantasy or drama or murder mystery or adventure or, magic show or something. Why are you not observing real nature, how it works? Because that would be too much to the detriment of what this society really is. If people understood their true nature and how it's so much better for them rather than taking on this plastic and concrete society with makeup and tissues and perfumes, I don't know what to tell you. I think that's the main problem, is people need to get back to their nature and understand they're the control mechanism in their behavior, not in their submission to some kind of authoritarian figure. You got something, John?
Well, yeah. I mean, Keith, how sound is the educational system? How sound is the legal system? How sound is the medical system? If the systems aren't sound, that means we're not sound. So, I don't know, man. We got to wake up. We just got to.
Absolutely. Every one of us has been educated by that same system, just like our moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas and stuff. It's been going on for a long time. So let's finish this up, and then I've got some rhetoric to pass on as regards to Putin.
To growing anti-Semitism. Historians believe Stalin may have been preparing for mass deportations of Jews before his death. Finally, on March 5th, 1953, Stalin died after suffering a massive stroke at his dacha near Moscow. He had been left alone for hours because his guards were too terrified to enter his room without permission. By the time anyone checked on him, he was barely alive.
And that's because he was so untrusting, as someone mentioned earlier. You know, he had a informant in Japan, Operation Barbarossa, that exposed Hitler's plans to attack, and he didn't trust the informant. So this thing about trusting another man, again, as I posed earlier, if you really want to be dictator and control the world, your first mistake was trusting Hitler, and Hitler's first mistake was trusting Stalin.
Oh, okay. So Keith, it's still based on trust then? All these modern systems still goes to trust in the end?
Well, because it starts with that dichotomy of control. Like I said earlier, a man that doesn't know how to control himself will trust another man.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how if you get to know yourself and take back your authority, the realization of what control you really have and how to stand on it, because now you recognize your true nature.
Right. We should trust each other more than we should like a computer. That's what I'll just say right now.
Oh yeah, and that's because of our observances and experiences as we can communicate them to each other. And that's, I think, the true aspect of this faith thing is that if you have somebody that you know and have known for a long time, and you have no reason to not believe him, there's a certain extent to which you can believe somebody to their experiences, say learning how to fish. You can believe a man that says, okay, well, you might know this way of fishing, but I know a way of fishing where we can go up and down the creeks and check under the logs and rocks and just grab them by hand. You don't need any other equipment. It's really cheap and you can get big ones. Seems more efficient. See what I'm saying? There's a different presentation in this world as to how to progress and do things better without all the damn technology. And sometimes you can do it better without technology because you can get the bigger ones because you know where they're at. Is that better knowledge? Or is the knowledge of the technology better?
Right. Knowledge grows on knowledge. So it's the foundation that's so critical, Keith.
Yep.
We have the right foundation, we'll have the right first floor, second floor, third floor. If not, it's all crooked.
Yep. You got to have everything squared.
That day. At first, the government honored him as a hero. But just 3 years later, in 1956, Nikita Khrushchev shocked the world by delivering a secret speech that exposed Stalin's crimes. It was the first time the Soviet people began to learn the full extent of what had happened. For the families of victims, the truth came too late. Their loved ones had been executed, exiled, or left to die in prison camps. Entire communities had been wiped out. And though Stalin was gone, the scars he left on the Soviet Union would last for generations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last for generations. Generations as we observe Ukraine today and Putin, and the same interest in natural resources as a way to support him and his society, the Russian society. So it's important for Ukraine as part of that area, as an independent sovereign nation, as they claim, to stand their square. And I believe wholly in that, as they've stood as Ukraine for a long time. And now Russia is trying to make the claim that they didn't have that sovereignty to begin with.
Come on, Putin is Putin.
That's the ability of a large group of people to be able to throw off a despotic government. Is the ability not only to throw off the despotic part of the government, but create a government themselves, a nation themselves. And that's how Ukraine came about. So it's not a matter of the rest of the world acknowledging through NATO that Ukraine exists as part of NATO, but that Ukrainians identified themselves. Okay, that's the issue I have here as it relates to Putin and what's going on today. So let's take a look at some points I've drawn up. Let's see here. First, like we mentioned was mentioned in the video there, the first thing that they did was take over the food supply. Okay, in those times they did it through a military order, ordering those agricultural families to give up their grain supply to a certain quota and this and that. And if there was any dissenters or anything, they just went and wiped them out, took all their food.
Yeah.
And
then building supplies. That was the next one.
Right, and that's you know, the 70s was the farm foreclosures for the agricultural takeover. The industrialization is when we saw the old Western warehouse stores where you would walk in and you would have a tab and you could go in and just grab a bag of flour, and maybe they might have a fancy custom gun holster that was hanging up for sale as a what do they call it, a consignment. And then they have the candy jars where they got a candy manufacturer that they order candy from regularly, and all these other supplies. The industrialization got rid of that kind of like a trading post, and as time changes, now it's becoming specific, and you have your purse manufacturers and your jean manufacturers, and that's back in the West days. You had Levi to start with, right? So it's the industrialization has taken so much of the culture away, that we saw being taken away by the local, like I said, trade stores and stuff like that started putting in multiple different products rather than mom's little bakery store where she had all kinds of baked goods that she would sell as a artisan style. So we have a marketplace of commerce that takes over apparel and food and supplies and weaponry, guns and bullets. And when does it stop? It's not going to. It's not going to. But we can balance it out by returning to those agrarian and different cultural lifestyles of commerce and trade by learning to go back to our independent private contracts with each other instead of being dependent upon a false patriarch that says this is what our nation is going to do and we're going to invade Ukraine because they have good resources and we need them, right, people? As the people sit there and squawk, oh, yeah, daddy, taking it all. Anything that false patriarch will feed them, they're gluttons for it, like little baby birds. Amazing.
Yep. And that's why, Keith, contract law, family law, and property are all from the private.
Yep. And you'll notice part of it was the destruction, just like we talked with the agricultural takeover and stuff. If they didn't meet their quotas, they would go in and destroy the family. They would destroy the property. They would take all food remaining and leave it desolate. Okay. What do you think happened here recently in Ukraine where they go in and they take out whole cities? Said whole communities are wiped off the map. It's repeating itself. The same with the mobilization and repression closing off borders and what is the seaports, having inability to go out into the sea and be protected that way. I mean, the death toll doesn't necessarily have to be the same, but again, it's because the actions are still the same, and those are what's so atrocious, even in the smallest amount. Just because you've only got one pedophile running the city doesn't mean it's not atrocious. And so it serves to reason that it shouldn't take 10,000 pedophiles running around in a city of 100,000 to make it atrocious. The act itself is what's atrocious, and that's what's supposed to be put down. And again, it's through the political regime of Putin trying to take over Ukraine to suppress its own political and culture. They decided already that they are sovereign. They have their own culture. They have their own political views. And so he's going to repeat what Stalin and all the other dictators did. Is that a republic? Is that what a republic does? What is Russia? Aren't they a republic? Aren't they a democratic society, they claim? I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Like I said, I'm not political. I do know the actions that are going on are just atrocious, like I said. Same with the, not just the suppression of closing the borders, but also the deportations of people within Russia and sending them out with no place to go. Again, the ideology over reason, efficiency, and sustainability when total communities are being destroyed. If you think that's where you're going to get your natural resources, the next step is going to be start killing your own people so you can't send them to that place and re-educate and assimilate and regrow. Do the same thing. Again, to the demise of a pragmatic and humane governance. I think Ukraine was doing pretty good by its own, despite the clown they've gotten in office now, which is probably a big part of the problem. His character is just as abominable when you think about morals and ethics.
Well, there's a study that shows, Keith, that at least 30 members of Congress have been charged with lewd acts, okay,
Yeah.
in public. That is a disgrace to America.
Oh, yeah, and that's what people need to wake up and be aware of. How many people do you think are just doing their job? If there's 30% of them being egregious in that manner, I guarantee you, again, it's a much larger percentage. I mean, those were gross figures, 30% of, 1 out of 3 people dying within that 1 year, as it mentioned in that Stalin video. And they did this, it's the same thing again. Putin claiming that Ukraine doesn't have its sovereignty. That's what Stalin was claiming. No, you just popped up and claimed you have sovereignty. Well, yeah, people have the right to do that. They have the right to throw off a despotic government. And remember, this isn't just something here in the 20s. This was Crimea in 2014. So it's just a slower action, but the same actions. Instead of being seemingly so atrocious in such a large aspect, it's just little by little. Like just a teeny little bit of cyanide today and just a teeny little bit of cyanide tomorrow, just a little teeny bite. And sooner or later, guess what? Death by cyanide. And it's totally to exploit the Ukrainian resources. I mean, that's you know, the blockade of the seaports through Black Sea and the inability to be able to maintain your economic economic stability as an independent sovereign nation is in fact a violation of that very independent sovereignty, as the rest of the world recognized just by the claim. Why do you think the rest of the world didn't jump in on it and say, well, yeah, Ukraine, you have to do what they said? Because it really wasn't none of their business, and Ukraine had every right to do what they had, or what they did. And again, through the decimation of entire communities, we see the decimation of crops, infrastructure, energy, industrial areas. All the same thing. What do you guys think's happening in the United States if the infrastructure and energy system is failing? It's not failing because it's being destroyed by war. It's just being let to go. You guys remember what the New Deal was, right? Putting everybody back to work since the war was over. Industrializing the nation. Steel factories for all the infrastructure, the new bridges and highways and everything that went up. Quarry work, manufacturing for concrete, for all the roads and buildings. Glass. You see things happening where something they're going to provide a new deal and quash all this drama and everything by making the slaves happy, by giving them work to do in rebuilding an infrastructure that should have been rebuilt 50 years ago.
They're even using the word wrong, Keith. Infra means below ground.
Yeah, which is interesting considering all the underground cities and stuff that we've discovered, right? So,
well, yeah, that's what it could mean secretly. I don't know.
well, all I know is the bottom line is the Ukraine area has a strategic and economic value.
Yeah.
Which I think is the underlying foundation of Putin's motivation in all this. You know, the entire Russian economy, considering this small Ukrainian territory, would be greatly enhanced simply because of the plentiful, bountiful resources that they have. And in order to gain control of that, they're doing things in the world for them that the rest of the world is absolutely allowing to happen, despite knowing that these actions have happened in the past and the direct result and intent in doing so through all of these dictators and everything. And I see Aaron in the backstage. Greetings, Aaron.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing, brother?
Good.
So what do you think?
You're talking about Stalin and Putin. I wasn't really. I was looking for open panels, but I probably can talk about what you're. I have some. No, I'm not very. But I have my own theory about stuff though. But what were you going to ask?
Well, I was explaining to the people the similarities that I see with Putin and Stalin and their war tactics and everything, and the decimation it created, and Stalin's downfall, and the seeming downfall of Putin. But it wouldn't be a downfall of Putin; it would just be a dismissal of the war. It would be coming to peace and just letting Ukraine be Ukraine. But along with that, the aspect that instead of being a war that did all this devastation in a matter of just 5 years or so, this is a long drawn out process where it started happening in Crimea in 2014, and it continues here now in the 20s, and the World Forum is all observing it and allowing it to happen. And it's still the same act. It's still the same actions, but instead of being condensed down in a short period of huge atrocities, it's being expanded over time into small atrocities here and there. And also the fact that it's happening right here on American soil through our own administrative government against our own people.
Yes. So you remember when they first started the takeover, like you said, in 2014. So do you remember what they were doing then?
Well, yeah, it was all about that supply and demand. And this is what every nation does in these kinds of wars. Like I explained, Ukraine has a very rich agricultural and mineral diversity.
I believe it because I bought this brandy and it says Ukrainian brandy. It's called Odessa. And I'm like, dude, this stuff is really good. And it says Ukrainian brandy. And I'm like, man, this is like the best. And it's super cheap. That little bottle was $2, but sorry, anyways. But that says from Ukraine. That's why I said that. That's from Ukraine. And I was like, wow. You know.
And the effect is you couldn't get that today because Putin has blocked trade routes and stuff in this war, effectively cutting them off and enclosing them in their own nation. So they can't export anything. And that's where their wealth comes from. So he's trying to control.
I want to buy more of this and I can't get it. And I want more because it's really good, cheap brandy. And it's like, I can't even get it.
Yeah, because they can't get it out of Ukraine. They can't get any of their exports out. So what does that do?
Yeah, that gives them,
in the supply and demand chain, that gives them a surplus and causes their economy to crash because there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But also, I remember when the war first started way a while ago. And what happened is Russian soldiers were coming into Ukraine and then taking over like army bases and they took over the Navy and literally would just steal their ship. And I watched a video where somebody filmed the whole thing. And I looked at that and I'm like, see, there's something I'm understanding that no one else really gets. And it's like, they're on whatever's happening to them right now, it's going to happen to us, but they're getting it first because Russia's closer to them than they are us. So they're taking them over. And this is what that takeover looks like. We're next. I know America say, oh, we're big and bad and we can defeat everybody. But, you know, what they don't understand is there's a lot more to the takeover than just a war. There's not going to be a war. When Russia first took over Ukraine, they weren't shooting anybody. They were taking over and there were no shots fired. But then eventually, once they took half of Ukraine over, then Ukraine said, okay, no, now we're going to fire back. You're taking us over. So then Russia said, oh my God, you're a threat to me. I'm going to actually wage war. But they never really did wage war. It's a military police action, kind of like
statism, kind of like the police state that we see here on American soil. See, that's one of the things. That's one of the things I was pointing out is that these same kind of atrocities happen right here on American soil. You may not call it genocide, but think about the stats and everything, and how many children are raped, how many children are starving, how many mothers are single mothers, and the father is taken away. That meaning that the family's been destroyed. How many people actually own farmland today? You know, how much of it is industrialized? How much of the culture has been industrialized? You know, it's sad to see that we can't be cultural beings anymore, and go back to our true nature and create our own clothing and produce our own food in agrarian style, or even be nomadic and be light-footed and light-weighted without having to be materialistic and have bonds to all that stuff. You know?
That's what I'm saying. People think America is this unstoppable force. Our military's too great. And it's like, if you combine what you just said to our military, that means they're dumbing us down. They're not going to defeat. They know they're not going to defeat our military in a real fight. So they have to do it dirty. They have to lobotomize everybody. They got to dumb us down. They got to ruin our food. Like you said, the way we make our food, just everything. It's a cultural attack. They have to weaken us. In order to defeat us, they got to mentally defeat us. And it's called demoralization and stuff.
Yeah, and I pointed that out with the first video as it goes to the education system of our children. You know, this dichotomy exists in our own society, and we see it through administration of education tactics. We have teachers that have their own ideologies, and our children and the children go to school and they are subjected to 6, 7, 8 different teachers plus other staff member that all have their own ideology. What would confuse a child more?
Yep.
And then they come home to parents that can't or won't or don't explain reality to them. So they end up living in this confused false dichotomies. Go ahead, John.
Sure.
Well, I would just say the teachers don't know the kid either. I mean, they never met them until they got them in the classroom. That's bad.
Yeah, and that goes against the natural spirit of children. And again, this is why I pose that we're supposed to be bringing the children up ourselves and be observant enough to find out what they are talented in so we can embed that into them. And with the importance of that ability being good for them, they would then automatically, autodidactically learn reading, writing, and arithmetic to help enhance that talent. If that's what's going to progress them in life, that would be a reasonable, logical step, even for a child. Children want to do what they want to do, not what others tell them to do. Help them embed that in their conscience because they want to do it. So anyway, that brings us to the end of our stream. I'm glad you joined us here at the end here, Darren. I appreciate your input. I'm glad to see that people are waking up and see it in a like manner, because it is a matter of stepping up and speaking out. So again, thanks for coming up on panel.
Can I say one thing, I guess, before I go?
Sure.
Like I said, Ukraine is closer to Russia, and they're going to take us over like they did. And I'm seriously making a prediction that within the next 2 years, we will be invaded and taken over by Russia. And it'll look a lot like the Ukraine. And it's not going to be some far off thing. And it all comes down to that they had to lobotomize all the public in order to do this. And that's how they're going to achieve that. Because if you look around, everybody looks like they're just like
zombies.
Yeah, something's wrong. I ain't good.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I'm not gonna push that on my platform, and I appreciate.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to hijack you. Or sorry.
The Russians are coming. Run for your lives.
No, we like to have fun with it, but I just want everybody to understand my intent here is not to push any kind of dramatic views or anything, but rather the research aspect of taking a look at things in reality and see if we can't find similarities that might give us warning.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not trying to fearmonger. I know it sounds totally crazy, but I'm the extremely sincere, and it actually kind of upsets me. I know people don't believe it, but I'm like, no, I'm like no one will ever tell you that because people are scared of the truth, and it's not, and so I don't mean the fear mark, but it's like this is like it, so I don't want to upplay it or downplay it. I'm trying to just give it like it is, and I've been researching this for a while, and really devoting a lot of my time to trying to figure stuff out. And I don't think people can do that. Like, not everybody's really able to sit down at the table and figure out things and stuff. But anyways, that's all I got to say, I guess.
I appreciate it, Aaron. And in the meantime, just so everybody knows, I don't think that's going to happen. I think though the mindset of the American people is the eighth grade reading level as an average, I think the common man here on the American soil has a greater fortitude, even without that, quote, education thing. I think it's more inherent in every man's heart that's brought up in that education system, saying that Pledge of Allegiance, under God. And I think that is a good moral foundation that most people do have in their hearts. And so if it ever came to something like that, we have to remember we're the most well-armed nation of people in history. What do you got, John?
I'll just make sure I have some vodka for the invasion.
There you go. There you go. Sent from Ukraine, huh?
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Well, you guys know me. I certainly appreciate you again, Aaron and John. And you know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's say I don't care if you hate me or you don't respect me. That part's on you. So may your God bless you and have a good night. Oops, what did I do here? Hold on, folks.
Oh Lord, I've done so many things wrong. I backed away when I should have stood strong. I quit things were taking too long, and Lord, it's taking forever to write this song. I was born on the mighty Mississippi. My daddy was a mean drunk hippie. When mama had me, that damn doctor hit me, and now you know why I'm so goddamn lit. So listen up and take a step back. Real rap's a journey, not a one-way track. Find your own voice, don't just imitate, cause the real ones rise and fakes ones fade. Bragging about the streets they roam, and sitting on the cold aluminum throne while I'm spitting and vibing, they just moan, claiming they're kings but sitting alone. Got bars like a prison but they can't break free, spitting recycled lines, no originality, and here I am bringing up clarity while they babble on, lost in their parody. No need to set a trap with a limp in their wall. People saying that you ever can't even talk, babbling lies, they think they're so fly, but I'm here to tell them to say goodbye. Babbling nonsense, trying to chase that fame, but I'm here to call it out. It's a damn shame, claiming they're the next Big E in the game, but their rhymes are weak, just a flicker, no flame. You sound familiar, yeah, real vanilla, so similar, like some out of place gorilla in a small villa deep in Manila, kin to Queen Camilla and her flotilla and all kinds of furbies and chinchilla who drank too much tequila. And what's really killer is that the real filler is the real spiller of the real filler is the real filler of the real deal. All these channel nerds on this panel verse using battle words to tackle turds and slinging shit in bit non-bits, putting out hits on men with tits and chicks with dicks and LGBT misfits and don't know shit yet, professing truth like an effing sleuth in a private booth with a lion tooth drunk over move like a damn fool. And just in case you haven't heard, I'm a true ogre that writes his own word, so don't cross the line, it isn't blurred. It's from first-hand experience I've learned when I hold the words back in my mind. It's just me trying trying to be kind, but no, man, I'm not so blind. Speaking is the right kind. Speaking vivid visions right from the start, with each word playing a certain part. A verbal picture that shows its own art, painted with passion, inspired by the heart. I'm telling you, break the chains with the truth in a world full of babble and giving proof. So drop the act, let the real ones thrive. In this rap game, only the genuine survive. When things have become so problematic, I try to find solutions like an addict looking for a bump to keep up the habit, and the effect seems so damn automatic. This comes a personality or whatever you want to call it. I don't participate chasing the bag by trying to ball it. See, I'm a redneck with no money, if I pay, I want it. So go ahead and keep hating on me like Jussie Smollett.
Everyone questioning my style, you must be kidding. The words that I am putting forth are hitting you in the right in the face, yet you are tripping. You're drunk on something and you ain't been sipping. Just step into the metaverse where the vibes can be cursed. Digital dreams, but sometimes it feels like a hearse. People lost in avatars, chasing likes in the cloud. But what's worse is the real world's fading now. We all have the freedom of speech, but people always trying to bleep me. Is it because they can't keep me? Or is it because they can't beat me? Bringing the simple truths that you can't destroy. All the fattened things I've seen since I was a boy. The things that made me cry and brought me joy. The good and bad in my life I learned to employ. Taking from them the experience and leaving emotions behind. And so I learned to be true and no longer accept to be blind. Acting and performing in ways that others have defined, only to find out once again that I have them aligned. We're living in a world that's so filled with doubt. If you're caught in the game, they don't seem to break out. I see you looking for the truth, but it's hard to scout. Thought you were awake, but finding you're lost in the cloud. They feed us the script, gotta learn to live without. Learn to question every lie and to flip the route. See the ages lurking in the dark corners all about. See I'm breaking free, hear my discernment speaking out. Perception's a trick punch like a shadow in a bout. Chasing after dreams, others trying to drown them out. But I rise from the ashes and break free from that doubt. In this matrix of madness, you hear me scream out, breaking the chains and getting rid of all the doubt. That's what you have to do to find your way out. Drink the clean waters and let your vision sprout. In a world of deception, together we'll rise and shine. The matrix way twist what it's all about. Reality's not a screen, that's delusion. You can do it out. Trapped in that illusion and mostly seeing others pout. Feeling like a pawn in a game where they set the route. Bet you didn't think I could wipe this rap. Bet you didn't bet I'm right in fact. So scream all you want and write in caps. All you really doing is fighting stacks. So remember I was born on the mighty Mississippi. My daddy was a mean drunk hippie. My mama had me, that damn doctor hit me. And now you know why I'm so goddamn lippy.
Days ago, and look who we have. Say hi to Dempsey. We've come to realize that it's a female with the dull coloring, and so therefore it is no longer Dempsey Sir Poops a Lot. It is Dempsey Madam Poops a Lot. So just once again, reminder, if you're a steward of life, you will have lifelong friends. God bless. Love y'all. Have a great day.